everybody. Welcome to Future Fuel. I'm Konrad Augustin, partner at Future Energy Ventures. And today we will explore how Enervee, one of Future Energy Ventures' portfolio companies, is helping millions of consumers find, purchase, and even finance the most energy efficient appliances in the market. For this, I'd like to welcome Matthias Kurwig, co-founder and CEO of Enervee. Welcome, Matthias.
Hi, Konrad. Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
My pleasure. So, to start off, why don't you tell us a little bit about why you founded Enervee in the first place? I mean, you had a successful exit before, you had a great job in New York City before, and so what was the problem you wanted to solve by founding Enervee?
There's really sort of a very short answer to this, and I think a little bit more personal background as well. I mean, I think the core idea is that we recognize and realize that the world is buying millions of products every year that consume natural resources, energy, gas, electricity, water. And most of these purchases are done without really knowing which product is the best or better in terms of energy consumption profiles or resource consumption profiles. And we thought this is a really important problem to tackle, to enable folks when they are in the market shopping for these types of products, to enable them to easily pick what's good for their home, but also great for the planet and helps them sort of have a more sustainable lifestyle. I think the more personal background to this is that, you know, as you mentioned, I sort of ended up in New York working in the digital media and marketing space for global brands like American Express and IBM and Cisco within Ogilvy, one of the big ad networks. And I think what I saw there is that if you use digital marketing and media effectively, you get people to do things that they might not even intended to do in the first place, right? I'm just thinking about how easy it is if you spend the money to get people to sign up for more credit cards that they don't really need. So the idea of using these best practices to get people to do the right thing in terms of sustainable behavior and being more energy efficient at home, that was very interesting to me, both technically and intellectually challenging, but the idea of using the skills that I developed over the years for something that's maybe a little bit more meaningful than just getting people to sign up for more credit cards sounded like a really great thing to work on.
Okay, wow. It seems you've set your sights on a big problem to solve there in terms of moving millions of people towards sustainability. How far have you come so far on your journey? And tell us a little bit about how many households and how you are touching those households with the solutions of Enervee and how that translates to CO2 reduction.
Happy to. So just maybe a couple of data points here. In the United States, there's about 300 million purchases each year of energy consuming products, sort of appliances and electronics in this. Just the major appliances bit of it is about a $46 billion annual market. And when you look at residential energy consumption, so what uses energy in your home, you find that about 80% of residential electricity use comes from plug-load appliances, sort of from the devices in your home that use energy. So when you think about aggregate impact, if you can get a meaningful percentages of those purchases to be more energy efficient, you're really moving the needle in a large way. In terms of how to get there, we learned after launching Enervee initially and working more on the core problem, how do you analyze product data at scale in real time and then help people sort of understand what's better and worse. Once we figured that out, and I talk a little bit more about this in a moment, we then thought about how do you actually reach these households? And that's where we found really powerful partners in the large utility companies across the country. here in the United States, utilities are typically mandated through state-level regulatory frameworks to increase energy efficiency over time. And so partnering with the utilities to offer an online solution, we call it the utility marketplace, that the utility offers to their end customers to say, hey, if you are in the market for a refrigerator or a dishwasher, go to our platform and we highlight to you which products are the most efficient ones, is how we are going to market. Today, we are working with over 20 of the largest utilities in the country, covering about 38 million households or so. So that's 1 in 3 US households that have access to our solutions. And typically you find them at marketplace.utility.com. So if you're here in Southern California, it would be marketplace.sce.com or marketplace.socalgas.com or marketplace.lawpd for the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power.com. And that is pretty much the same across the country. So that's how we engage customers. And what's interesting is that consumers, you know, I always sort of half jokingly say that very few customers really like their utilities. They don't have a sort of, you know, fond, personal, emotional relationship, but they explicitly trust their utilities when it comes to advice, you know, regarding what's a good product to buy from an energy and carbon footprint perspective. And just to your last question in terms of what's the aggregate impact, I think last year we moved, you know, I think about 3 million purchases or so in terms of aggregate impact on the platform, and we ran an analysis at the tail end of last year what sort of our aggregate impact in energy use reduction is in terms of gigawatt hours. And we found that we are very close to approaching the annual power production of the Hoover Dam. So that's probably a good picture for people to realize, oh, wow. So if you nudge millions of refrigerator purchases, the aggregate impact is really sort of power plant level, both energy production and by extension, then carbon reduction.
Wow. Hoover Dam, that is very impressive. Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
Is it really all fridges and TVs that people buy on the marketplace that accumulate to that massive energy savings?
No, it's kind of where we started. We really came from televisions and refrigerators, which just in terms of unit sales are big categories. There's about 40 million TV purchases in the US every year, just to give you an idea. I think refrigerators are more around 10 million a year. So that's where we started. But today we are ranking and scoring. I think currently we're at 44 product categories. So every major appliance and electronics category across electricity and most gas categories. We are programmatically integrated into the data feeds of all large and medium-sized appliance and electronics retailers in the country. So we see everything that's being sold in the market on a daily basis. And our, I think you call it the data pipeline that we manage, analyzes about 3 million product offers on a daily basis. And then we normalize and structure all of that product data, which in a good day, we sort of rank and score about 70,000 individual appliance and electronics products. And then what we haven't talked about is then with that data set, we are able to calculate what we call the Enervee score, which is a simplified sort of 0 to 100 efficiency rating that dynamically changes on a daily basis. So if there's really new efficient products coming into the market, these new products then score 100, so it's the best thing you can get. And all other products in the market might lose score points. So as a consumer, you know, if I today buy a product that scores 92 or 93, then I'm in a top 10 percentile of the market, and I make a really fantastic decision for my home. And that's sort of the confidence and the advice that we are after. I forgot one important thing though. I just realized, like, we went actually beyond appliances and electronics a while ago. We launched the same sort of marketplace shopping experience with a score for vehicles. So we were curious about, could you apply the same model with sort of a simple efficiency indicator to help people make the choice between combustion engine cars, hybrid vehicles, and now electric vehicles. So the input data there is a little bit different. We look at the sort of impact of each vehicle in terms of financial cost of operating it. So what do you pay for gas or electricity for an EV? And we look at maintenance costs and insurance costs and things like this as well. And then we also look specifically at the carbon emissions. So we look at how much CO2 do you produce by burning the fuel in your car versus, depending on where you live in the country, what is the carbon emissions out of you using electricity in New York City, for example? And then that carbon intensity we also use to sort of have a carbon footprint per car, which really helps folks easily compare across fuel types, which we identified as a real important piece to getting people to consider electric vehicles as a viable option going forward.
Wow, cars as well. I'm always afraid of looking up what my old car has in terms of Enervee score, but I'll do that after this call.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
actually what most people really do when they come first to the platform. Everybody wants to know what their car looks like in comparison, right?
Of course, I'd be really disappointed if I'm like below 80, but I'll call my OEM then.
Yeah. You should.
Okay, so it seems you've had quite an exciting journey already behind you, and your team and you are on that journey still, and had a big impact, it seems. So what's next for Enervee now?
Yeah, big things. So we kind of, when we look at the problem a little bit more sort of conceptually, if you like, right there, what we are doing is we're removing barriers that are in the way of making product markets more energy efficient, right? The first thing is just to provide transparency. So what products are good to buy versus not to buy. The second barrier we tackled is how do you get that information in front of consumers at scale, right? So that if I am in the market for a washing machine, I have this resource and I can use it on my phone and easily find out where to buy the most efficient washer that fits my needs. So that one we got tackled. The third barrier in the market is affordability. So right, you need your refrigerator breaks. You might not have, $1,000 or $2,000 lying around to just buy a new one. And so if you are in that situation, it's really difficult to research and pick a product that is maybe really good for the environment and lowers your utility bill because you are so concerned about how will I even be able to buy it? And that might, inform your buying choices more than anything else. So with that in mind, we looked at the idea of could we create a financing offering, sort of, I guess everybody calls it buy now, pay later now, but not just one of these generic ones, pay over whatever, 6 months or 12 months, but something that is uniquely tailored to appliance purchases. So something where if you buy a really efficient appliance, you get a really special offer for financing, which should be long loan term because you own an appliances for 5 to 12 years, depending on the product category. So ideally, you want your payments to align with the duration of use for the product and get to a really low interest rate, a low APR, which we unlocked by talking to government entities, the state in California here, the Treasury. After working on this for a year and a half, we got all the pieces together. So we're literally days away from launching this capability here in California with our first utility partner, SoCalGas, one of the largest gas utilities in the country. And the California Treasury is subsidizing this loan program. We partnered with a fintech company called One to be the actual lender in the process. But what it all means is that a consumer can go to the SoCalGas marketplace later this week, and when they want to buy a washing machine, for example, you pick one that's really efficient, and then you can decide whether you want to charge the $700 on your credit card, or you can choose eco financing, which is the product name for this financing offer. And then you get a 60 months, so a 5-year term loan for 9% interest rate, which means that most washing machines will cost you less than $20 a month with no money down. And because these loans are government secured, even if you have a very low credit score here in the US and you might be challenged to get, other sort of sources of credit, you're most likely eligible for this type of financing because the government helps with the loan security on the back end.
Wow. So you're going to have an offering for 40 million Californians pretty soon to get their hands on the most energy efficient appliances without breaking the bank. That's a big step. What's happening after California?
We're also in pretty advanced conversations with the Department of Energy, potentially sort of subsidizing a program like this on a national level, which would be a huge win for all Americans to be able to really get sort of modern, highly efficient appliances in their homes, ideally with a demand response component, right, where you can sort of address peak load issues in the grid, which would also be an easy thing to add in a structure like this. So that's where we're going.
Wow, saving the planet while making a buck or two, while enabling millions of people to make the right choices. That's very cool. If we weren't already investors, I'd put my money on you and your team. So I'm very excited. I've been impressed with the growth and the path so far, and I am very much looking forward to the future. The best seems to be yet to come. So thank you, Matthias. All the best for the launch, for the future, and also for the team. Thank you very much for taking the time.
Thank you so much, Konrad, and thanks for believing in Enervee. You much appreciated for it. Thank you so much.